Election 2011 coverage on Manx Radio. Brought to you by PDMS.
Well, the first of our two candidates today in the studio, a 60-year-old, I think I'm right in saying that?
61 last week.
61, well, congratulations. A former fire officer who's contesting a seat in Douglas, John Skinner, is married, two grown-up children, two stepdaughters. He's been a planning committee member for 9 years and has served on the Health Services Consultative Committee. Good morning, Mr. Skinner.
Good morning,
Welcome.
John. Moramai, thank you.
Moramai, your decision to stand, now, I'd say, was that a recent one? But of course you had a go at being a LegCo member at one stage, so you've obviously been thinking about politics for some time.
I have actually, John, yes. I've been thinking, as you say, for some time. I actually thought about standing at the last general election, but due to other commitments that I had in other areas which were quite heavy, it didn't afford me the time to do it.
So why did you go for LegCo, which obviously is not mainstream MHK politics?
No, it isn't. But if you take, for example, that the principal job of Legislative Council is that of a revising body, there were one or two MHKs who approached me and thought that I obviously had strengths in that area. So after giving it some consideration, then I thought yes, and I'd at that time as well given up a number of my commitments and made sort of, if you like, life easier for myself, but then decided to make life harder for myself by going into politics.
Well, indeed, you became a lay member of the planning committee. How instructive has that been?
It's been very interesting. It gives you an insight into what's going on in the island.
You applaud the fact it's now in public rather than private.
I do, actually.
That's important?
It is important. It gives the public, the objectors and the applicants the degree of being able to see how their application is being processed. Unfortunately, at the moment, and I know that it's one that myself and other committee members have strong views on, is that of public speaking. And we would like it to be progressed. And obviously, if I were to be successful, it's one thing that I would look at.
Just explain that. What do you mean by that?
Where the applicant has the opportunity in a limited period, say for argument's sake, 3 minutes, to talk, or for the committee to be able to ask them questions.
And that can't happen at the moment.
It can't happen at the moment. Everything is done purely through the planning officer. And there are times when an application has to be deferred for lack of information.
Well, let's move on, because that's talking about openness, and you want greater openness from government. This is a familiar call. What sort of greater openness? Do you want council ministers, members, or meetings to be open to the public, or what?
No. A lot of people who I've spoken to on the doorstep say they don't know what's going on. And I think perhaps that there are a number of MHKs who've lost touch with the public.
It has to be said the public don't go to the Quays very often. They don't go to Tynwald. Perhaps if they went there, they would find out more about what was going on.
Well, exactly, they would, but they don't go to the planning meetings either. And, it's a case of you have to go to them.
I mean, the government should go to the people. They should.
Well, that's what we're doing now.
Right.
I mean, we're going on the doorsteps, knocking the doors, and we're asking the people for their views. But we don't go back and say, well, we've listened to your views, but we can't do this because of X, Y, and Z. And the public accept that, John.
You're trying for the West Douglas seat. Obviously, that we regard that as almost a sleepy suburb. Well, what sort of issues is concerning them there? Is that the national, international issues, or is it local issues?
In the main, I've come up with the local issues, to be honest.
What are they?
The usuals, the potholes, speed limits. Say a sleepy suburb. If you go up to West Douglas now, you'll find it's a Joey run straight into Douglas for
RAT run.
Yes.
So what can you do about that?
Well, you've
Apart from
got
traffic humps everywhere.
Well, you've got speed humps. There is, which yes, there are a nuisance, and I wouldn't sort of advocate them. But even reduce the speed limits, as I said to Stu the other day. If you go down Princess Street, the speed limit is 20 miles an hour. But if you go through Primrose Avenue, it's 30. And whilst I accept that 30 isn't a target, it is a speed limit, but it's too high.
Just quickly, you say education and health are cornerstones and need to be protected, but if we're going to lose 75 million over the next few years, something has to give. So where else would it go?
Yes, indeed. Well, you'd have to look at the capital schemes. You have to look at everything across the board. You'd have to prioritise the capital schemes. And if you were looking to save money in health, I know that currently Health do work with a lot of charities. And that in itself, if they take on, if the charities
Take on more?
no, if they look at charities, different charities to help in different areas, it is a possibility that extra money could be saved in that area.
We'll have to end there. Mr. Skinner, thank you very much for joining us. John Skinner, who's standing in the West Douglas constituency on September the 29th. It's 8 o'clock.